Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you every bass that I have, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one because there are some pretty interesting stories behind these instruments, some of which I've never actually talked about until this video. Some of these basses I've had for over 20 years, so we've definitely been through a lot together. Let's take a look at the first one. All right, this is a McElroy fretless bass, and it was actually given to me by my old bass teacher, Jim Stinnett. I really love the sound of this bass. It's nice and woody, just sounds very profound to me. And the fact that it was given to me by Jim, my old bass teacher, means it brings back a lot of memories. Next, we have the Schecter Model T session bass. I really love the sound of this bass. It's interesting because it actually looks kind of like Victor Wooten's Yin Yang Federa bass, and weirdly sounds kind of like it too. It's a great all-round bass. Another interesting about this bass is I installed a tremolo bridge on it because of that one video where I wanted to use a whammy bar. I took it to Guitar Center and he said this is one of the craziest projects that he's ever done. This bass will always have a very special place in my heart. My go-to bass for probably 8 years or so, maybe 10 years. And you can really see that by the extensive wear marks here from double thumbing. So the Fay D-tuner, it's a very high quality bass. Alright, this bass is also very nostalgic. This is my second ever bass, which I got after playing bass for maybe 2 years, so about 20 years ago. It's a Music Man Sterling. I don't know if they actually do this model anymore. They do Sterling by Music Man now, but I think that's a different thing from this. This is very similar to the Stingray. I can't actually remember what the main difference is. But this was my main bass for about 5 years between maybe age 14 and 19. So I was always playing stuff like this. Next we had the Schecter Stiletto fan fret. This is the one which only has 3 strings on it, and I always get comments from you guys asking why there's only 3 strings and can you please replace the E string. The reason there's only 3 strings is because I just needed a fresh E string for a different bass, and this one had a fresh E string on it, and I kind of just left it up there with only 3 strings, and I started seeing comments from people asking why there's only 3, and now I just have a weird sense of humor and think it's funny to have a random 3-string bass up there and have people wonder what's going on. So now all of you who watch this video will understand why there's a 3-string bass up there. So you're in on my very funny joke now. Alright, next up we have the Schecter CB6, which is my signature 6-string bass. You've probably heard me talk enough about my signature basses, but I will just say again, this one's got a very nice thin neck, which for me is very important on 6-string basses since the fretboard's already wide enough. And I love the sound of it. Now we have the Schecter CB-5, which, as you can probably guess, is the 5-string version of my signature bass. 5-string is probably the bass type that I play the least. I'm usually playing either 4-string, like 80% of the time, and then when I want to do tappy, high stuff, I use the 6-string. But I do love using the 5-string for metal. Now we have the Schecter CB4, which is of course the 4-string edition of my signature basses. This is honestly my favorite bass I've ever played, and I'm not just saying that because it's my signature bass, but I just love the thin neck. I love the sound of it. I love how it feels. You can have the action nice and low without getting buzz. And I've traveled around the world with it, and it's held up great so far. So this bass has a pretty interesting story. I actually set it on fire. I mean, it was a little bit of a gimmick, of course, but I actually think it made it look very cool. Originally, it was all this color, but The fire obviously gave it all of this black and darker brown, which I think looks very awesome. And luckily burning it didn't really affect the sound at all. Next up we have a double neck. So we've got one neck for guitar, one neck for bass. So you can play bass and guitar at the same time.
What the fuck, bro?
Then we have the Schecter Banshee, which is a slightly shorter scale bass. I think it might be 28 inches. And you saw me use it in this video. Never seen me play. Secondly, he's not wearing a pinky ring. And lastly, his voice sounds like Darth Vader. This one's a glary bass. It's actually more of a beginner bass, so I'll probably do a giveaway at some point and just give this one away to a beginner player. Now we have the Court Fretless. And I actually basically got this one because I did a video with the McElroy fretless, which I really liked how it turned out, but I did get quite a few comments of people who thought that it wasn't a fretless bass because it has fret markers on it. A lot of people were saying like, oh, this guy doesn't even know what a fretless bass is. So I thought, okay, I'll get one that doesn't have fret markers on it, and I got this one, and it sounds pretty nice. Now we have the Schecter SLS Elite-5. This was actually the first bass that Schecter ever sent to me. So this is where the courtship began. It's also my first ever 5-string bass, so it's kind of special for that reason. And yeah, it sounds amazing, especially for metal bass lines. Now we have the Schecter Stiletto 8-string. This one is very cool. You basically got an octave up next to each string. So it's E, A, D, G, but each string is paired with another string that's just an octave higher. This gives it basically like a natural octave effect, like if you're using a pedal, but it sounds cooler and it's quicker when it's just a natural analog octave effect. It sounds great, but it is very difficult to play, but not as difficult to play as the 12-string. Look how crazy the headstock is for this thing. 12 tuning pegs, yeah, it takes a while to tune this thing. But it's the same situation where you've got E, A, D, G, and then each string actually now has 2 strings next to it, which are each 1 octave up from the original string. So it sounds absolutely huge. Now we have the Fender Kingman. It's a very nice acoustic bass. You can get the action pretty low and it sounds very bright. Now we have the Schecter Stiletto 6. This is the second bass that Schecter ever sent me, and right now it's actually missing a string. Sometimes my bass collection looks a little bit like Frankenstein's laboratory or something. There's like random strings missing, and weird experiments happen on these instruments. This is the LaFay Remington Steel Fretless. So a 6-string fretless with a steel fretboard. I really like the way it sounds, and given the fact that the fretboard's made of steel, it's actually not heavy at all. And I have it strung and tuned exactly like a guitar, so E, A, D, G, B, E, but an octave down. All right, next we have the Travel bass, which looks pretty hilarious. Brand is Traveler guitar, and it just is the most efficient possible shape with the tuning pegs actually in here, so it doesn't need a headstock. And it has piezo pickups, so it sounds very bright. And you can pack it in your suitcase, but not in your carry-on bag. This is a Kala U bass, so it's called the U bass because it's basically a ukulele bass. Sounds surprisingly bassy given how small it is. All right, now we have this rubber strings bass, and it sounds very cool and deep and almost a bit like an upright bass, but even more dark, I would say. All right, now we have this absolute beast from hell. Yeah, I ordered this online used, and I actually have no clue what brand this is, but I do think it might be the most metal looking bass I've ever seen. Now we have the Danny Sapko signature bass. There's no room for poncing about on this bass because it's only the E string. I thought about removing all the frets past fret 7 since Danny famously only stays below fret 7. Alright, so the brand is actually Donner. So it's another beginner bass, and I thought this would be a good bass to do weird experiments on. But it's surprising what you can do with just one string.
That's what she said!
Okay, we have the Schecter Hellcat 6 now, which is a bass 6, which basically just means that it's very similar to a guitar, but everything's an octave down. So it's kind of halfway in between a bass and a guitar because the scale length is a little bit longer than a guitar, but not as long as a bass. And the strings are pretty thick, but they're actually spaced much closer together than on a bass. So you can kind of think of it as being like a guitar, but just much lower in pitch. All right, we've got another very nostalgic one here. This is my Fay D-tuner with piccolo strings on it. You can get some really beautiful sounds out of this, and it's also got 4 D-tuners on every single tuning peg, which means you can bend open strings and harmonics and get that kind of Michael Manring vibe. I love the sound of this, but for the last few years I've been focusing more on what I can do with just regular bass strings. But let me know if you want me to start playing this more again, because I'm definitely not opposed to getting some more piccolo bass stuff back in the mix. Alright, and then now we have the transparent bass. This is another one that I ordered online secondhand, so I'm actually not sure what the brand is, unfortunately. I've also put DR's neon strings on this, so if you put black light on it, these glow. And then just to really cap it all off, you've got the lights. But there you go, that brings an end to the tour of all my basses. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these amazing instruments. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Thanks so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.